So Eva and I agree on a 4-point roadmap.
Yeah, so I think that's the last kind of thing to read. Here it is. So it's literally called Spirit of Clarity. Because
Okay.
we
It's
discussed
called. It's called what?
Spirit of Clarity.
Spirit of clarity, which is spiritual. I like it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
like Ava and I, well, because she also gets her 400,000 shares.
Okay. Spirit of clarity. Dear Eva, I definitely agree that things should be very clear in each step and no misunderstanding, which can be very unfortunate as we have already seen. So I'd like to shortly summarize the steps and the reason for them. The reason there is phase 1 and phase 2 is because phase 1 are all legal obligations that cannot be bargained, and it's because phase 1 are legal obligations that the situation can immediately go to court, which I think we agree is best to try to avoid by good faith actions. Step 1 is correct the share table registry. This is simply an obligation and a board cannot bargain correcting who owns what shares. Step 2 is restoring me to the board. This will restore board legitimacy vis-a-vis shareholder and normal functioning of the company. Everyday board legitimacy is questionable, is not good for the company. Board member liability is extremely high and so restricts all the normal business that can be done without high risk of more legal problems due to ambiguous legitimacy of decisions. Step 3 is that I must carry out due diligence to comply with my own due care obligation once I am on the board. Step 4 is resolving the past so that the negotiation returns to a normal business sphere and experience, and attorneys are no longer required. Attorneys can help resolve everything we need attorneys for, and then we can start a normal business negotiation where attorneys are no longer required. Just as you can't bargain away your obligation to correct the share table, colon EGM, etc., I can't bargain away my obligation to carry out due diligence. Legal obligations are simply that and cannot be bargained. Once legal obligations are satisfied, there remains all sorts of issue of potential wrongdoing in the past, which is in the sphere of attorneys to resolve. Now, we already have the resolution agreement approved as legal by my attorney and I believe company legal counsel. So maybe a few modifications are needed, but as far as my attorney's current understanding, the resolution agreement can be concluded quickly. Because I have an attorney and the company has an attorney, all the above steps can happen quickly. Likewise, almost everything is already audited with speech, which speeds things up greatly. So if my attorney is satisfied, I'm in due care, then so will I, and I don't expect Oli to need much time. As a reminder, due care doesn't mean that I've done some exhaustive analysis, which much less we correct all the problems. Just that I've checked things for myself and with legal counsel to be able to reasonably say I'm doing my duties as a board member to my own satisfaction. My legal counsel and our belief a judge would chastise us for you didn't even check if some problem was missed. Phase 2. Although negotiating in phase 1 is ill advised and legally hazardous, suggestions and recommendations in terms of timing and details, etc., or the speculation based on the successful completion of phase 1, given our current understanding, are perfectly legal. However, the context must be that we do not know at this moment the legal facts of step 1, 2, and 3. So to commit in advance will be bargaining those legal obligations. I cannot commit to saying the result of my due care review, just as you cannot commit to saying who owns what shares until the legal process is completed, which requires legal expert and potentially courts to resolve. Warm regard.
And then Ava phones me to tell me to write down these corrections. So this is
Okay.
like during a phone call with Ava.
Okay. To clarify, step 4 includes is now we already have the resolution agreement approved as legal by my attorney and I believe company legal counsel, so maybe a few modifications are needed, but as far as my attorneys currently understand, the resolution agreement can be concluded quickly. Warm regard. Dear Eva, and to be absolutely clear on the point of attorney in phase 2, I'm not saying they are no longer useful and should no longer be consulted, just that after reaching step 4, with the help of attorneys, things should be stable and calm. Attorneys are always welcome to counsel any part at any point, of course, and I'll be also checking things with my attorney. However, if things remain stable, then after phase 4 is completed, things should no longer be as attorney sensitive as they are now. Warm regards.
Yeah. So this is what we agreed. And
you guys agreed on all of that. Okay.
Yeah, and then
And we agreed.
yeah, and I told Ava that like if everything was fine, and if everything was good faith,
Mhm.
I would not have a problem issuing the shares to everybody,
Mhm.
agreeing to issue everybody the shares, whether it's legally. Like for me, there's no claim to it. The clean break resolved. Like now, there's this new share registry.
Mhm.
They recognize the previous one was false.
Mhm.
They make a new one. I have 51%.
Mhm.
The clean break resolves all claims in that they know about.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
like for me, there is zero legal claim to any new shares.
And okay. Yeah.
But I give my word to Ava that if everything was good faith and calm, and the roadmap we agreed on followed,
Mhm.
then I would agree to issuing the shares people want.
Mhm. I also say to Heather that if things move forward in this sense, I will also agree to issue the shares people want.
Yes.
Okay?
She says everyone's good faith now, and that's what will happen.
She says, all good. This is what will happen. Okay.
And hearing her say it, I was like, I have a doubt, but we'll see.
Okay.
So, anyways, then I get returned to the board by a shareholder quorum, just like an unanimous shareholder decision.
I get returned to the board.
And with voting 51% of the votes.
And with 51% of the shareholders' right.
Yes.
Vote right.
Yes. Okay, then
We are in?
I guess February now.
We are in February. Well, it just happened 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That means.
Yeah, we're almost at the present.
So
So then I return to the board. Next day, Ava informs me they're not going to sign the resolution agreement, which would have resolved the emails and everything.
so you get returned to the board
Yeah.
with 51% of shareholders vote right.
Yeah.
When February,
Yeah.
and then you receive an
Ava says they're not going to sign the
is
resolution
a phone
agreement.
call or
Yeah, I guess phone calling or chatting. Point is, it doesn't happen.
I learn from Eva. However, I learned from Eva that that
That Lauren and Urs
Lauren and Urs
won't sign the resolution. Won't sign the resolution.
Sign which one? Which resolution?
Well, the resolution agreement at this stage is just it's Ava's. First, it was Ava's idea, Ava's proposal that after I return to the board, we sign then a version of the Christmas resolution agreement.
Okay, we will not sign the version agreed on of the Christmas resolution agreement.
Yeah,
Okay. But this agreement concerns what?
Well, the resolution resolves all past claims. So the email, all the criminal stuff.
Resolving all the criminal stuff.
As well as making fake company documents.
As well as making fake company documents.
Right, voting with my shares. Right, serious fraud.
Okay.
So this is and like I benefit from the clean break because I negotiated in good faith. So in Finland, if you don't negotiate an agreement in good faith, you risk losing all the benefits of the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And good faith is like an information thing. It's just that it basically means you didn't manipulate the other party by hiding information or lying to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So right, I'm not sure how it works in Switzerland. In Canada, like in English law, there is not this good faith thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were manipulated into signing an agreement and lied to and so on, then the judges will be like upper class wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, but in Finland that's not the case. If you're tricked or lied to into signing an agreement,
sure.
right?
Okay.
So so I benefit from the resolution agreement, and it doesn't like I own 51% of the company, whatever. So
Okay, so
they refuse to sign.
they refuse to sign.
Then they threat. Then Ava just then there's like 2 weeks of negotiating, where all Ava does is communicate the threat.
2 weeks of negotiating, where Eva communicates
The threat that they'll destroy the company if they don't get the shares before the negotiation
the
starts.
threat that Urs and Lauren will destroy the company if they don't get their shares before signing.
No, before negotiating is the phrasing,
Before negotiating.
which Ava herself recognizes it would not be rational for me to accept. Like the whole point of the negotiation is about the shares.
Eva herself admits it would be stupid for me to accept.
Yeah. Then
Unreasonable.
yeah, and then I try to ignore this threat.
I try to ignore these threats
And focus on like actual points of negotiation.
and focus on actual points of negotiations.
What I want, my priority is renegotiating the shareholders agreement. That there's some process to attack me with company legal resources. Like I've been attacked by my own money for a year, right?
Yeah.
So that's my priority. Like, so if there was if I could see that, like, I could live in peace and I don't have to fear being attacked by my own company that I founded, you know, I could let go of the shares, right, even if I don't have to, because I'd still have 26%, and then they're still valuable for the company, right? So I try to focus on these things. Instead, they immediately start, like, they don't want to resolve any of the crimes they just committed, like making face file company documents, all the fraud, etc. And now they're just threatening to destroy the company. And then Ava, instead of like, I try to ignore
They
it.
can do that. I mean, even
No, that's extortion.
now, if they decide to destroy the company, how would they proceed?
Yeah, well, for like, as long as there's no mechanism, I ignore it. I try to ignore it.
Yeah.
But eventually, Ava escalates to they're going to leave and take all of the team with them, and that will destroy the company.
No, that doesn't.
You know, legally, obviously, it's totally illegal.
They can.
They're board members threatening to destroy their own company.
No, that's illegal. But are they like?
You know remember the whole like solicitation thing I got accused of?
Okay, yeah.
They
yeah,
signed
yeah.
that too.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
It's just even if they did.
Oh, the company would still exist, yeah.
Yeah.
But
and also they would be in the shit.
yeah, and the key phrase, Lauren's threat, like the Ava says that Lauren's even tells me Lauren's phrase, which was that I can be king of a pile of ashes.
Lauren declared that I could be king of a pile of ashes.
So you can, I take the name, I take that as a compliment. You can call me the Ashen King now.
The king in ashes. The king of ashes. That's gonna be the title.
Because before
That's gonna be the title.
yeah, because right before the day before they accepted I own 51% of the company.
The King of Ashes.
Yeah.
Is gonna be the title of the book. The Eric Wissens case.
Pile of ashes. Anyways, because a day before they accepted the claims of my 51% ownership, Lauren showed up with his father, saying that they can make a totally new company, bring everybody. And Lauren's father will finance it.
Okay. Eva says Lauren declared could be pile of ashes because Lauren and his father threatened to bring.
Well, they proposed this to the other board members to make
father proposed to the board member to found a new company
and bring everybody with them.
and bring everybody with them,
And Lauren's father will finance it.
and Lauren's father would finance it, which is not illegal.
No, it violates the solicitation clause that they accuse me of.
True, but then they have a new company finance. They don't care. You can accuse them all.
No.
you
The
want.
solicitation clause is binding even after you leave the company. It's like the non-poaching clause. You can't poach people away if you leave the company. That's the
Yeah.
whole point of the solicitation clause.
Lauren and his father proposed.
And it has that has the minimum, the 60,000 euro penalty.
Okay, but if they can pay it, they don't care.
No, minimum 60,000 euro
Yeah,
penalty.
yeah, but if they like, you can always break agreement as long as you can pay for the damages.
Yeah, but the damages would be 60,000 euros plus whatever. That like
Yeah, but like what I said to you, Eric, is like, as long as you can pay the damages, you can breach contract.
yeah, no, sure.
That's what it is.
No, well,
That's
the
war
illegal
within-
part is the extortion. Right? They're
Yeah,
threatening,
okay, well, that's
they're threatening to destroy the company.
yeah, that's a problem if
Yeah.
they try to destroy. But in this situation, in this situation, legally, what you could do is you can have individuals that are liable because they're on a board, and they do that. So they're individually liable, but the new company that is founded could have deals with them like, we will support that, and if they have a ton of money,
Well, they don't have a ton of money,
okay, well,
and like obviously it would be a legal mess.
yeah, we'll finance it. Okay, so
But it's definitely not a good idea to announce this plan as a board member.
Lauren and his father proposed to the board members to found a new company and bring everybody with them, and Lauren's father would finance it.
Yeah, and like trying to steal the contracts away. Right, all of this is all of this is like highly illegal.
Yeah, okay, so okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I try to ignore this. Eva tells me about this.
I try to ignore this.
I try to focus. Like I'm still proposing we do the resolution agreement, which would
focus.
also cover this new extortion.
On the resolution agreement, which would also cover and resolve
This new extortion
this
as well.
new threat of extortion.
Yes. Well, it's not a threat of extortion. It's just straight up extortion.
No, because they haven't done it.
No. Extortion is threatening to harm you unless you do what I say. That's extortion. Doing the crime is then the actual crime. Like if I threaten to kill you unless you give me property of,
Okay.
that's extortion.
I have to
After
ignore
maybe I
this
don't
and
do it.
focus on the resolution agreement, which will also cover and resolve this new extortion.
Yes. Then, but that's refused.
That is refused.
Then Ava escalates to describing that they have like a legal theory of how they could.
Escalate by describing a legal theory.
Which is that if they don't have the shares,
Which
right?
is if they don't have the shares,
Then they're not bound to the shareholders agreement they
then
signed.
they are not bound to the share agreement they signed, which is correct.
I don't like they.
Technically, if the agreement promised them shares, they don't have the shares.
Yeah, but they didn't claim the shares. Unless
They have been misleading because like the agreement didn't explain exactly the process to them. Can you prove that the process of obtaining the shares have been explained to them?
Yeah, but it does like what would happen if this went to arbitration before?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know.
But now at this current state, we've already signed the clean break.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So they've dropped all their claims about the shareholders agreement anyways. That's why I thought it was totally irrational to. That's why I was so confused that they signed the clean break
Yeah.
if I still own 51% of the company.
Sure. Yeah.
So now they have this legal theory, but in between they bought David's shares, and they also bought Arto. There's another side story about Arto that we could get into later, but it doesn't really affect anything, so I skipped over it.
Yeah.
But Arto's also left at this point, and sold his shares. And the shareholders agreement is you can only get shares if you agree to the shareholders agreement. So their whole logic doesn't even they're literally, even if they don't own my shares, they literally own new shares from David and Arto. So they're literally shareholders right? It's only Will and Arno that at this point have no shares, and they're not going to do any of this anyways. So whether this legal argument could work or not, now I have to react to it because it's for sure board members shouldn't be planning the destruction of their own company.
Well, you try to ignore that before.
Yeah, no, but now I don't ignore it.
Because they say that they have this legal theory when they are not bound by shareholders.
Yeah, because if you don't react to legal information, then later people can be like, we told him.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? We told him we destroyed the company exactly this way, and he did nothing.
I now have to react.
Yes. So I call board meetings.
I call a board meeting
to discuss this threat to the company and how to mitigate it.
To discuss this threat to the company and how to mitigate it.
Whatever, they refuse to have these board meetings.
They refuse to have this board meeting.
Eventually they say the company's not under threat. There is no threat to the company.
They say there is no threat to the company.
There's also now a new weird process. I asked to meet Marco is like in Tampere, and the auditor's in Tampere. I asked when I joined the board, rejoined the board. I asked David to set up meetings with the auditor and the attorney all together so we could help stabilize things.
I asked meeting the new attorney Marco. What happened to Ville?
He recused himself.
Okay,
he recused himself, citing a conflict of interest with Arto, the other investor.
Okay. Huh? Really?
Yeah. This is another. I skipped over it because I didn't want to take too much time. But there's this whole other epic, legal epic with Arto.
Ask meeting the new attorney Marco and the auditor together in Tampere.
Yeah, or separately or together.
I put it there because it's weird.
Yeah.
Ville did recuse himself because of a conflict of interest with Arto.
Fucking weird, huh?
That because weird. We didn't know how Ville came.
You see those coincidences that I talk about.
Good. That doesn't look good at all. I asked meeting the new attorney Marco and the auditor together in Tampere.
And I also asked to be in any meetings with the auditor or the company attorney, and I'm on the board.
Yeah.
Right. But it turns out Ava's been meeting with the attorney without inviting me.
That Eva has been meeting with Marco.
Yeah.
With Marco without telling me.
Yeah, then she says it's it's not a meeting, it's a phone call. I'm like, a phone call is a meeting too.
Okay.
Come on.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down. I'm not writing that down. Okay.
So anyways, now there's new shenanigans afoot. And I keep on being threatened with destruction. It's honestly difficult to just deal with this at this stage. But okay, so then I call a shareholders meeting on the question of the attorney.
So you call a board meeting because of the threat of the company.
Yeah, they refused that. I call shareholders meeting.
So you go. Then I call a shareholders meeting.
I start calling shareholders meeting on all the important subjects, the attorney, reviewing the attorney and his impartiality.
Reviewing the attorney Marco.
Yeah, because his
impartiality.
Also, they recognize, Marco and the auditor recognize I could challenge all the previous board minutes and shareholders minutes of the previous year since the false not even share registers, just false share ownership appeared. Right? And Marco even was giving Ava, because Ava's we're not going to sign the resolution agreement. All we want you to do is drop claims against the minutes. Right? And I'm like, well, that's really complicated. Dropping some claims, but not all claims. Everything's connected. I'd have to review that. And in theory, it's possible. And then she was getting wording about this from Marco of drop it and wording that was really strong. Dropping all claims against and challenge. So I'm like, well, challenge is that I can't challenge the decision, like I can't even vote against the decision, right?
Then I call a shareholder meeting reviewing the attorney Marco and his impartiality. What happened?
They then do this like crazy bureaucratic trick. Ava asks for more time.
Yeah, okay. They use crazy bureaucratic things to do what? To delay?
Well, Marco tells Ava that she can refuse that I participate in meetings with him. Even I'm a board member at this point.
Okay, yeah, but like, what happens? Like, what I need.
Yeah. So then, what happens is then I call these meetings. They argue. They ask for more time, and then argue. Well, I don't know. It just goes back into total illegality, and they basically set up. They ask for more time about the shareholders meetings. Then they try to set up. They're clearly discussing in secret with Marco. Everything's back to the chaos as it usually is. Ava's totally manipulated. Then Thursday comes along, and there's a board meeting scheduled, and then Ava suddenly changes the agenda.
There is a board meeting.
Scheduled. Yeah.
Board meeting or shareholders?
Board meeting scheduled.
Board meeting schedule.
Not on my points, but Ava.
Schedule. And Eva changes the agenda into.
So the night before the agenda was whatever, something else. But then the afternoon of the board meeting,
yeah,
Ava sends a new agenda, which is
a few hours before the meeting.
Yeah.
A few hours before the meeting.
Ava sends a new agenda, which is to vote on a new share registry.
Vote on a new share registry. What did I not understand? The board has no power to determine ownership.
They managed to convince Marco to recommend to the board, including me, the 51% legal shareholder at that point, right? No question about that. Yeah. To vote a new share registry.
So they cannot do that. Like,
it's fucking messed up.
The board has not the power to define who has ownership. It's not possible. Why is that not clear at that point?
I don't know. They managed to convince Marco that they can ignore my EGM request on Marco's position as well.
There's a board meeting scheduled, and Eva changes the agenda a few hours before the meeting to vote on a new share registry. Ouais, c'est bon. Ok.
Okay, you want to read his letter?
Not really. What is that?
Anyways, so it's just a long so then he gets Marco. I've called the shareholders meeting, which he tells the board they can ignore.
Okay.
On his position, also the shareholders meeting is to review potential fraud.
Yeah.
Because Marco tells Aussie that because Aussie's like, well, whose interest do you represent? When he phoned him the first time, and Marco tells Aussie he represents the company interest and the board members' interest. So he literally announces himself as a conflict of interest, which is an honest thing to do at that point, because he doesn't know who the company belongs to. So how can he honestly say he represents the company interest?
It's easy. You look at the share registry, you take the name. If you represent the interest of the company, you represent the interest of the shareholders.
Yeah, the majority, and certainly the majority over the minority.
Yeah, technically, no. No. If you are.
No. In Finland, the companies work on majority decision. So minority shareholder. Yeah.
Sure, but the company is the 100% of the ownership.
Yeah, but then there's a definition of shareholder interest.
Sure. Yeah.
But then there is the definition of the majority of shareholders get to decide.
Sure.
Right. So if you're defending shareholders, you're defending both majority shareholder interest, then their right to decide, right, and minority shareholder interest, who have some rights, information, and they can challenge things on very strict grounds, like the decision is irrational or criminal or whatever. So minority shares have rights, and my majority shares have the same rights as well as the power to decide things, right? So this letter, right? Like I own 51% of the company, and Marco writes this long letter citing no laws. Right? He's an attorney. He doesn't cite any laws, and in this letter, he basically he says things like.
Marco writes a huge letter
Huge long letter.
saying what?
Like for instance, that it wouldn't be fair for the others to make their claim in arbitration, but that's what the shareholders agreement says. So he's like telling shareholders that how the shareholders agreement says disputes are to be resolved wouldn't be fair. So he's kind of all over the place. But the key things that he says are that my shares actually transferred in 2014.
My shares did transfer in 2014,
and I was liable to pay the capital gains tax.
and I was liable okay, to pay the capital gains tax. Okay.
So this somehow explains how.
Okay.
So
if that's true, yeah, you fucked. But if that's true, you fucked. You know that.
What?
If this is true, if you were responsible to issuing these shares and you never did.
No. That's like the first the agreement was the company was going to issue new shares. The only way that can happen is for someone to make a claim against the company, which is what I tell them to do. I brought lawyers in 2018 when I heard about there's a statute of limitations, because for me it was always we can do it later, right? And everybody agreed to do it later, right? And when it was negotiated, we told them, you guys can get a lawyer. Like, we don't know how they're going to get the shares. You guys can get a lawyer, right?
Yeah, sure. But like, if you misunderstood that and like you had to do all the work for
no. That is like 100% false. So in Finnish law, you're responsible for your business interests, right? So like, if you have you have to be active in.
Okay. So okay, fine. But
the tax that matters is what's called the transfer tax. So in Finland, if you buy
capital gain tax or stacks.
he says the shares transferred in 2014, but it's also the claims have been dropped by the clean break agreement. So you can't go back. I own the 51% of the company now. That's clear. You can't go back to 2014 and make claims because there's the clean break in between. So there's
the
like
clean break doesn't.
It does
It doesn't do anything on the shareholders.
Well, no, but the shareholders' rights.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but
I have the shares.
Yeah.
Right. If they say I didn't do, like they make a claim against me by what I didn't do or did or didn't do, well, now that's a claim.
Yeah.
Right. And then and they could still and Aussie and I have been clear that they can still make a claim. Right. At this point. Right. What matters is who legally owns the shares. Right. At this point.
Yeah.
Aussie and I are clear that that they can make a claim, and they can bring that to arbitration if they want.
Sure.
So, which they never do. So since 2014, I've never received a claim that I owe somebody their shares. So to be in breach of the law, I'd first have to get a claim, refuse to honor it, right, and then arbitration or a court, right, decide that I'm wrong and I owe damages about that, right. But the problem is I never receive a claim. Because the share, we understood since 2014 that the company has to issue the new shares, which is not my only responsibility, right? We'd need the board and the whole board and the whole shareholders to do something about it, registered shareholders, right? So at any point, it was always the shares would be issued later. So at any point, anyone could have made a claim against the company,
sure.
Right?
Okay, but
that's the problem is it never happens.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Marco writes a huge letter saying that my shares did transfer in 2014. I was liable to pay the capital gain tax.
Yeah, so this kind of explains why there's no documentation about it.
Yeah. Okay.
But the tax that matters is what's called the transfer tax.
So the transfer tax.
So no, he says the capital. He's like the shares transferred in 2014 without anybody being aware of that.
Okay.
Right. And I was liable to pay the capital gains tax, and that somehow then that's why there's no documentation about the share transfer.
And that is why There is no documentation
Well, do you want me to read his exact sentence?
of the shares transfer. Okay.
So the right, and even says like later he says like he even says the like it's kind of all over the place. He's kind of like arguing as much in my favor. Like he kind of presents the legal reality that okay they'd have to go to arbitration, but then he says oh that wouldn't be fair. But that's literally what we agreed. He then says like he then even says right at one point he says the CEO and board at that time should have registered the shares to the PRH trade register accordingly, and taxes should have been paid by the shareholders. Then later he's like, based on Chapter 3, Section Companies Act, the board is obliged to record transfer of shares in the shareholder register after they have been presented with documentation, evidence the share transfer, and proof of the paid transfer tax. Right? So these are just contradictory statements.
Yes.
Right? And that's the law. The second sentence is what the law says, is that you acquire a share, right? Like I sell you my share, my 1% in Abalance. Like let's say we're in Finland. I sell you my shares, right? We have a contract about that, right? I now no longer own the shares. You own them legally, right? At that moment, right? But now you're liable. Like I'm liable to. Well, I'm no longer involved. If I got to pay taxes, that's my business. But anyways, what matters is you're liable to go and pay the transfer tax on that because this is not like a stock market, right? So transferring.
There's a name. Shares have names.
Shares of no, but there's also you have to pay. There's a 1.5% tax on share transfer in non stock markety companies.
Yes.
Right. So if you're on the stock market, things can go faster and cheaper.
Yeah.
But if you're outside the stock market, there's like a 1.5% tax, and the law is you now own the shares. You got to go pay the tax. You get the receipt that you paid the tax.
Yeah.
Right. And then and only then can you present the share acquisition to the board, right? And you have the proof you own the shares now. And the law specifically says reliable documentation that you paid the tax, right? And then the board updates the share registry. And only after the share registry has been updated can you now exercise shareholder rights in a shareholders meeting. Sure. And the law is even you have to do that 8 days before a shareholders meeting takes place.
Sure.
So that's the process, and that's what he describes, right? Board is obliged to record a transfer of shares in the shareholder registry after they have been presented with documentation, evidence, the shares transfer, and proof of the paid transfer tax. So if they wanted to keep with this legal theory, right? Well, they could have taken the SHA, the shareholders agreement. Like no one's interpreted the shareholders agreement as transferring my shares until 2022. But let's say somebody had that interpretation in 2014, they could have taken the agreement, paid the transfer tax, and then come back and asked the board to update the share registry.
Sure.
And then what would have happened? We would have been like, okay, is that legal? Like I don't know. We would have been go to the auditor or an attorney. If it's legal, boom, problem solved. Like because I don't dispute. Like that would have been convenient for me. That problem solved. So the problem is nobody does that. So now after the clean break, there's also if you want to accuse there's also 5-year statutes of limitation, which is like super strongly worded in the law. Like if you want to make a claim against board members, the chair of shareholders meetings, the auditor, basically a claim against anybody for anything, you have 5 years to do it.
Okay, I got it. But let's
So
continue.
anyways, then so he has this weird legally reasoning.
Yeah, okay.
He says that recognizing my ownership was a misstep.
Yeah.
It says, the board should convene promptly as the share registry modification, according to the Eric's letter, was a misstep.
Okay.
That should be immediately corrected. And this is an attorney supposedly working for me, right? Super weird. Then, therefore, collecting my proposal together, convening the board meeting, correcting the share registry considering the last week's share purchase, and updating the PRJ trade register decision on AGM to be held instead of several EGMs with partial external chairman, multiple issues to be resolved, closing the book for the financial year, getting back to real business, raise money, and continue. So he also recommends this impartial external chairman, which is a good idea. But the main thing is, and then he basically says that that they should buy me out, basically.
Okay.
Money. Then his conclusion. What if this would not work out? Question. Money seems to answer most of the problems in my experience. Then he's like, therefore, Plan B, they buy me out, basically, or Plan C, I buy them out.
Well, what do you buy? They don't have shares. What do you buy? Like.
Well, that's why, like, according, like, registry modification and was a misstep. Now this, like, acknowledging my claims, the auditor said it was true. So this is an attorney saying it was a misstep to recognize the auditor opinion on who owns what shares.
Okay, so Marco accused recognizing.
Right. He also says, like, look,
51% was a mistake.
Which he wrote the letter for, recognizing the claims are true.
Yeah.
He answers Aussie about that. Anyways, he also says entering to the arbitration would take roughly 9 to 6 months to resolve the situation, and costs would most likely be tens of thousands of euros.
Entering arbitration would be financially costly, so...
Yeah, but not my problem. Not my problem.
Not to do it from his point of view. Okay, but event, Eric.
Yes.
Okay, I got the letter, I got the thing, I got the problem.
And I get this in the afternoon. They're going to do the board meeting.
I get this in the afternoon.
I'm with my children.
I'm with my children.
In like 20 below weather in Finland, like we're playing in a park. Then they drop a whole bunch of other stuff, including analysis from Ava's attorney, saying that if you want to review the shares ownership again, an impartial expert should do it. That, of course, things can be interpreted differently, right? And then if you want to review the share ownership again, it should not be board liability, but an external expert. So Urs and Lauren, and then Lauren sends me analysis. This is the best part. Lauren sends me analysis of his attorney, which says, I don't have time to read all this before the meeting, but I read it after, because it's just like a crazy process.
No, but like an event.
Yeah.
I get this in the afternoon. I'm with my children. The meeting is in...
Like 6 hours.
In 6 hours. And they change the agenda and question the shares again. Okay.
Yeah. And then the share registry, because they can't decide who owns the shares. So then this meeting happens. I'm just like, it's not, I just explain how it's not possibly legal.
I explain how this is not possibly legal. You're in the meeting.
Yeah, we're in the meeting, and then
the board meeting.
Yeah. It's not possibly legal. Then like that, the share ownership is determined outside the company. Urs declares the board is the authority on share ownership.
Urs declare the board is the authority on share ownership.
I'm like, no.
I'm like, no, dude.
Yeah, basically. Will has an interesting recommendation.
Will has an interesting recommendation.
That we get an external expert to review the question again.
To review the question.
And if I'm right, he'll resign.
He will resign. Will resign.
Yeah. If the question's reviewed again, and it's still the same, he'll resign.
Will,
yeah.
Okay.
But then they voted through. Anyways, like Urs and Lauren and Eva reject that.
Urs and Lauren reject that. They don't want.
Yeah. And then
Urs, Lauren, and Eva.
Yeah. Well, Eva just totally manipulated again at this point.
Lauren and Eva reject that. Well, this is in their interest to do that.
Pardon?
This is in their interest to have an external expert review that again.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that we don't change anything. We don't change the company until the conclusion.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. They reject that. They vote. They push through the new. Urs has created again a new share registry.
Urs created again a new share registry.
I've also made it clear it's not like the one that they corrected is still not the right one, because I saw the first share registry being created in front of my eyes in 2014.
Sure, yeah.
So it should, and it's supposed to be, these documents are supposed to be, you never retroactively change anything. You only make new entries.
Yes.
So it should be the legal one. I've explained that. Okay, the 51% is true that I own.
Yeah.
But it's still not the right share registry. We should still get it done by an expert, based on and the first expert that did it was her title is literal lawyer tax expert, right? So like a tax expert, and that's who explained to me all these tax issues with transferring shares and so on.
Okay.
So then
Urs created again a new share registry. So Will has an interesting recommendation. We get an external expert to review the question again, and if I'm right, he will resign. Urs, Lauren, and Eva reject that. Urs created again a new share registry. I saw that.
Yeah, and this time he says shares ownership based on the SHA and votes exercised, undated. Like now he just makes up this part, because the problem with his first one was he just says shares redistribute.
Okay.
Which was obviously false.
Where he does complicate things to redistribute the shares.
Yeah. So this time he has this time he's decided shares ownership based on SHA and votes exercised.
But I don't care about that.
Yeah, anyways,
what
the vote...
I care is about like...
Yeah, but there is no who votes... How do you vote to who owns what shares?
No, you can't.
Exactly.
Plus, it's a board meeting. There's no like... It doesn't have anything to do with that. So
yeah, that's just how they legally do.
Okay.
Then there's this new chaos, right? Then they call a shareholders meeting, the AGM. They first we talked to it. They organize. I'm still on the board.
Yeah, you're in this board meeting.
Yeah, but they changed the votes. Then immediately they tell me. Then the next agenda point is signing the resolution agreement.
Okay.
And they say if I sign, everything's resolved. Like they've just changed the share registry again. Now they're like sign the resolution agreement. Oh, by the way, if you don't, the company will be destroyed. They come back with their threat of destroying the company again.
Okay. They want me to sign the new resolution they made.
Well, just the resolution agreement, dropping all claims.
Agreement.
Just in the context of the dropping claims about the share registry.
Resolution. Okay.
Or whatever. I reject that. The meeting ends, obviously.
I need to send a resolution. I reject that. I reject that.
And it's again more extortion. They threaten to destroy the company again. Except they phrase it that it's only they're like, it's just our opinion the company will be destroyed if you
They
don't.
want me to sign the resolution. I reject that. The meeting end. Okay, then what?
Then there's a meeting with a
There is a meeting with.
no first to go in chronological order. First, then this is new stress and chaos. My girlfriend breaks up with me because I promised her that would be finally calm and stable that I own 51%.
Yeah.
Right, and then the agreement with Ava is that we would come to an agreement of what
But
to
like
do.
Eric, just at that moment.
Okay, no, but then I go to the police in between. So like now this is just like last month, so everything's now then I go to the police because my girlfriend broke up with me. I decided to focus on this legal I've been trying to ignore the money laundering because I've already told police multiple times.
Yeah, okay.
Right, and if I had 51% of the company, whatever, police don't do their job. I don't know. It didn't seem like there was much I could do about it. But since my girlfriend broke up with me because I promised stability and calm.
My girlfriend broke up with me, and then you.
Well, then I go in. I focus on all the legal issues that I've been just to kind of just to focus on something else, other than the heartbreak.
On the legal issues with your landlord.
Oh, well, no, the landlord, that's going on.
Okay.
Aussie's handling that.
So what?
But this whole thing with the police, like there's this whole police thing that doesn't make any sense, right? And I've been trying to ignore it and just solve things with the company, get to peace and calm. But there's not going to be peace and calm. So I'm like,
these things where you were supposed to be questioned.
No. Well, the police have dropped everything in Tampere. I mean, I go through the whole money laundering and then police.
Yeah. On the police things.
And money laundering.
And money laundering.
I've never reviewed all the money laundering evidence until now. Because for me, I report it to police. The police ask me. I tell my story. They say, okay, can you I remember what's been in emails and what was said to me and so on. But I haven't gone back years and years, right? So I want to so it's also maybe I'm crazy, maybe I misinterpreted things, right? So this is then I'm I have time. I'm not working. Nothing else to do. So I'm so I plunge into all the legal issues about the money laundering, the police. I reread
all my legal things and review all my interaction with police, lawyers,
Yes.
and mention of money laundering.
So all I do is convince myself about the money laundering even harder.
All I do is convincing myself on the money laundering even harder.
Because there's way more email evidence than I thought.
There is way more email evidence than I thought.
Because a lot of
So it's funny because at that moment you could have just focused on the company, and you added more chaos in your life by going into the money laundering thing. That's what you did.
Yeah. Well, but if there was the 51%, probably I would have just never gone back to the money laundering.
But you have 51% at that point.
No, they've now changed the share registry. Well,
They can't.
But they can't. They did.
They can't.
No, in Finnish law, the board can just change the share registry and then hold shareholders meetings, and there's nothing you can do about it in the short term.
Okay, so that's what they did at the. But you haven't signed anything. Who declares the board is authority on share ownership? You're no.
Yeah.
And then what?
They vote to change the share registry again, based on votes exercised. I guess that means them voting themselves my shares. Right. That's what their new share registry says.
Okay.
So no.
So I need to write that down. No, dude, they don't care. They don't care, and they vote in front of you.
Yeah.
Vote in front of me.
I thought you had noted that down.
No, they
Sorry.
vote in front of me the repartition of my shares in this board meeting.
Yeah, and it's totally in like they have not. No one has presented any. Remember what Marco said? Like, you people have to present the share acquisition and the transfer tax. Like according to the Marco who's saying to change the share registry, the only way to do that is to present that you acquired a share and you paid the transfer tax. Like
Anyway.
they and no one's like, and they don't even present they don't even present the shareholders agreement.
Sure.
Anyways,
I care only about event.
yes. So then the share registry has been changed. So there's going to be new chaos,
Yeah, okay.
right?
They don't care, they vote in front of me the repartition of my share in this board meeting, and they proceed to change the share
Registry again.
again.
It's like a couple of weeks
Yeah.
after. Anyways, so then anyways, I go into the money laundering thing just because it's like this is like it's this right. It's just this weird, crazy story, right?
Sure.
So then I go into it, and I'm like, I don't want to like if I don't have the evidence, right? Then okay, whatever, I drop it anyways, right? And then because what you remember more is like the verbal conversations. Like I met Christian and David in Stockholm, and then we talked on the phone a lot or whatever. And my impression is all of this is supported by email easily.
Yeah.
But I don't have like all the emails like memorized, right? So then I take this time of
Through the emails. I take this time to focus on something else
basically.
than my heart broken
Yeah, exactly.
and my company being not my company.
Yeah. So I like
I dig the past. All I find is more suspicious thing around
and plenty of written evidence supporting my
suspicion thing and plenty of evidence that something
it's seriously wrong.
is seriously wrong.
Because there's a lot of things that are like unbelievable, like the police officer telling me I have that I can come in for questioning next week and so on.
About the police, about the lawyers,
Yes,
about David, about Christian,
yes. So this is
about
when
Arto.
and Arto, yeah. This is I haven't got to save time. I've ignored
About
Arto because he doesn't really do much. He just announces a year ago. He announces he's going to exit the company within a year. So I'm just like, all right, great.
Okay. But Arto, okay.
And then, but there's this weird connection
Yeah.
with David. Obviously, he doesn't help resolve the thing. He's in copy of a lot of this stuff. He never helps resolve anything. Apparently, he behind the scenes, there's a bunch of shady shit that goes down. He apparently David says that he would yell at them and so on.
Who? David?
Arto. Yeah, but I'm not a witness to any of this, so that I've not talked about it. Then there's this thing with when I had my attorney, the attorney who quit, just answering his questions. He wants to go through all the evidence. Answering his questions just leads to showing Arto's way more bad faith in the original contracts were negotiated clearly with the intention to never do anything.
Sure.
Anyways, but that's so Arto's gone.
So you dig into everything.
Yes. And this is when I'm not only do things make, this is the first time this is the first time it occurs to me that maybe the seed had been sown by David's comment that I don't worry about other shareholders being informed.
This is the first time it occurs to me.
Well, this is the first time I seriously, it occurs to me that things may be more connected than I think.
That things can be more connected than I think.
But this is the first time I do any sort of serious analysis of the question.
A serious analysis on the question. Analysis.
Yeah, and I do things like reread the lawyers. Like there's a legal licensed legal counsels act. There's an auditor act. There's the companies act. Like I reread all these, the criminal act. I reread all the laws very carefully.
Read all the laws and agreements. Is required. I reread all the laws and agreements. This is the first time it occurs to me that things can be more connected than I think. A serious analysis on the question is required. I read all the laws and agreements.
And like the a good explanation starts to be.
And a good explanation starts to be.
Organized crime.
Organized crime.
Like there's like until now everything's like so crazy, and like you kind of get into this logic and expectation that things are crazy. But when I kind of took a step back and I'm like, okay, I report money laundering to the auditor, and she just then tells the board that David has no conflict of interest or in any way agrees with that conclusion, and that there is no auditing, there is no money laundering. The board tells me that they investigated, like with the auditor, and there is no money laundering. So why would the auditor be covering for David? Like the only thing the auditor should do is like invest, like it's serious, right?
Well, maybe they did invest and they didn't find any money laundering.
Well, how do you do that without talking to me? And how do you know what evidence I have? I'm the person making the allegation.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know, like I'm not an auditor, so I don't know what the rules are, but it seems, but then she agrees that like David has no conflict of interest. She's also continuously telling Ava what to do. She's reviewing contracts.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So all of this, it's like why would the auditor be covering, certainly helping David, right? Like maybe like I don't know, some super audit, like now the auditor's under investigation by the trade register who supervises the auditors. But at that point, but now it's like, well, she certainly hasn't been like, as soon as money laundering appeared, like she could have gone directly to the police. I got a money laundering allegation. The police would have talked to me, right? Whether it's her job to investigate or not, she clearly didn't do anything, right? She just and is it the auditor's place to conclude that there's no money laundering?
No.
Right. Anyway, so then it's like, okay, the auditor and then this Vile guy who then there's this conflict of interest with the investor that Ava's just told me about that recently. So I didn't know that Vile was gone for months. So there's this attorney that comes into our company without me knowing as chair, CEO, and managing director. Then exits with saying there's a conflict of interest with the other investor. And then David mentions this like, oh, don't worry about other shareholders being informed, Eric.
Yeah.
Right? So okay, there's this connection between David and Arto that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
The auditors covering for David and the money laundering, and obviously the company attorney. Ava tells me the company attorney when Ava at one point she's like, oh, we got to resolve this, and she goes to the company attorney with an idea to resolve it, and the company attorney recommends that they dilute me out of the company, and they're like, his words exactly are, why are you still talking to him? And Ava tells me all these lawyers and attorneys tell her not to talk to me, but we're like the biggest shareholders and parents, we shouldn't talk to each other. And then this whole thing with the police. So then the auditor, the police, and I'm told that the police, Ava, attorney, and the prosecutor get together and like brainstorm crimes against me, including sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment?
Yeah, including sexual harassment. I won't go into the details because they decide that the case doesn't have legs, but that I was guilty of sexual harassment, just haven't been convicted. To Ava.
What? When?
Like because we continue a relationship after being divorced.
Okay.
And they go through all this to see if they can get me on sexual harassment.
And did they?
No, they decide that, in Ava's words, the prosecutor's seeing if the case has legs. But
what does she think?
Ava? Well, whatever the prosecutor.
What matters is in case of sexual harassment. What matters is what does Ava think?
Well, Ava thinks that her attorney, prosecutor, and investigator telling her it's a crime means it's a crime. Why wouldn't she? She never mentioned the idea before.
Okay.
Uh, um, so she kind of they convince her that like I'm a criminal, even though they're not going to convict me of anything because they don't have any evidence. So this is weird, right? Like then they have these huge meetings to brainstorm accusations against me, but they never phone me about the money laundering and the emails and everything that has actual evidence that I post.
Yeah.
So I kind of go through all this, and it's like maybe like until now I thought David was kind of a moron.
Yeah.
And got sucked into this money laundering thing.
Yeah.
And then somehow this chaos emerged.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe the auditor was like, we're a small company.
Yeah.
And like this is certainly overwhelming for the auditor.
Yeah.
But this is that now I'm like, well, maybe these people are connected in an organized crime money laundering ring, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm afraid for the first time. Like until now, these people just seemed like clowns and morons and whatever. If I get some sort of, I don't know, as I said, my approach to the law is I'm not afraid of the law in Finland. So I'm not afraid, and so...
Which makes me afraid.
Because suddenly I realize I'm the only witness, I'm the only person who understands how the money laundering worked.
Suddenly I realize that I'm the only person that knows.
Yeah, and the police go to extreme lengths to make sure they don't get any evidence about it.
And since the police went through extreme lengths to not get me to talk and report evidence,
right? So
I cannot exclude that they are somehow part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it.
And
I start to fear for my life.
Yeah. Because in this moment, if I just disappeared, everybody's problems are solved. Right? The police things are all closed down. Yeah. Right? The auditor is like closing the audit. She didn't do anything, whatever. Right? The board members are all convinced that I'm the criminal and they've done nothing wrong and etc. Right? Like if I just disappeared, I suppose certainly David's problems and his partner Christian, right? If I just suddenly disappeared in that moment, not only would everybody's problems be solved, but these events that we've just gone through would not be reconstructible by anybody. Yeah. Right? Like without me, there's no way anyone could look into this and understand anything.
Sure.
Right? So for me, this is exactly how you get killed. You walk into some organized crime ring, you underestimate it, right? Because they're stupid. But I'm like, but there's two explanations for the stupidity.
Either they are super stupid
or super protective.
Yes,
exactly. So this is exactly the conclusion I come to. Because I'm like, how do these people make such reckless, like from a legal point of view, right? It's totally reckless. And putting in evidence in email and so on. So I'm like, suddenly I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe they're not stupid. They just know they can get away with anything. Yeah. Right? Then then you just do what you want, right? Yeah. Right? So maybe David, he just doesn't hesitate to blackmail me because he knows Arto's got his back with the Tampere police. Yeah. Right? Somehow. Yeah. Right? So now I'm afraid. I call the Justice Commissioner. I do more research, and there's two institutions that supervise all public servants in Finland. One is called the Justice Commissioner, and one is called the Parliamentary Ombudsman. And you can make a complaint about any public servant.
I complain.
No, I don't complain. I call them.
I call first who?
The Justice Commissioner.
The Justice Commissioner.
And then the both conversations are the same. And the Parliamentary Ombudsman, it's called.
And the
Parliamentary
Ombudsman. Parliamentary Ombudsman.
It's a weird word. OMBUDSMAN. Man. Ombudsman. Yeah. And so these are two institutions that they can't change results.
These two institutions cannot.
They can't change results.
Results of what?
Of like say a court process. Results? They couldn't change your verdict, but they could investigate the judge for corruption, basically.
process, but they can investigate other
Yeah,
authority
for wrongdoing or
for wrongdoing
of whatever sort.
or of whatever sort.
So they have like pretty big power to investigate only public servants.
Okay.
And I talked to them for an hour and a half. I explained the whole money laundering, the whole police thing.
I talked to them for hours explaining everything and the money laundering.
And in particular the police, because that's where it comes to the...
In particular, these weird police interaction I got.
Sorry. There's one event before that. I call the judge. I call the judge.
The Justice Commissioner?
No. Before calling the justice commissioner, there's one event before that. Is that I called
the judge.
Yeah. Well, I called the first is I called the police. Remember the police that's recorded.
Yeah,
Right.
was way before.
So I called that was before Christmas. But then I called the judge. I forget exactly when. Sometime in this, I called the judge that was the judge that mediated Ava and I's marriage thing. I mean, child custody thing.
When was that?
The mediation?
No, when did you call the judge?
I think it would have been in December.
It's before. It's way before.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that important?
Yeah, it is important, but you can record it there.
Okay.
In
December, because you started to fear for your life.
This
year.
Yes, but this judge thing is also important.
I called the judge
in December.
And I called the judge.
After speaking to the police, I then called the judge.
The judge that is on Eva and I's case custody.
Well, that case is over, but he did the judge mediation. He was the judge in our child custody mediation.
The judge mediation. Okay, and I called him after the weird police interaction.
Yes. But my own, first I'm polite. I ask him if I can talk. I don't know if you can phone a random judge.
Sure.
I ask him if he has time to talk.
Uh-huh.
He says, yeah, what about? And my question is on the, I have two questions, which is the police refuse, don't allow me to refuse closing the investigation. What can I do about that?
The police won't question me?
Yeah, and it's a question of basic rights. The police just refuse to respect my basic rights as a suspect.
Refuse to respect my basic rights as a suspect. Okay.
So that's my basic question. Who guards the guards?
Yeah, and then
right?
What's the second question?
No, well, that's not really the second question. Then he asks what's it about? He starts asking me questions.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, this is about the money laundering.
I explain him the money laundering.
But I don't explain him. I just say that I reported money laundering. The police then investigated me. Then.
So I explain him.
I reported money laundering.
The reporting of the money laundering. And
that the police never phoned me, and then they investigate me, and then they refuse to respect my rights. That's the basic what I explained.
Yeah.
Then he starts questioning me. Then, because for me, the judge isn't an investigator.
And he starts.
Then he starts questioning me about the money laundering.
Questioning about the money laundering.
He's like, well, money laundering, what money laundering?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, whatever. Then I get into it. Yeah. And then he starts arguing with me.
Yeah.
First, those aren't, well, that's not money laundering. And I'm like, yeah, making fake documents, signing PPAs with Angola and whatever, right? That seems like it's for sure money laundering. And I don't have to prove it. I just need justifiable suspicion to report it.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to report it, who to report it to. And he's like, and he keeps saying, he's both questioning me, arguing with me about the laundering, while saying it's like a police issue, police handle it. And every time he says that, I'm like, yeah, which one? Who to phone? Which one? Yeah. Right? Which police officer physically exists that deals with money laundering that you can talk to on the phone? Okay. Then he keeps on arguing with me about it. Then he says, oh, these aren't crimes in Finland. I'm like, this involves a board member of a Finnish corporation. How's that not in right?
okay,
Literally
okay.
in Tampere.
But what's the conclusion?
Then the conclusion, he keeps arguing about it, and he only really starts arguing about it when I mention Arto Leitonen as one of the, because he asked me like what shareholders.
Yeah, he keeps arguing with me, and started.
Like he really starts arguing with me when I mention the name Arto Leitonen. They both live in Tampere.
Okay.
And then he concludes with money laundering is not in my jurisdiction.
He conclude that money laundering is not in his jurisdiction.
Super weird call.
Okay.
And then like impromptu trial, right? It should be registered in the court. I don't know. Like for me, what a judge says is important.
Okay.
Right.
I call first and then okay. So you had that in December, but then let's go back to the present.
Yes.
I call first the Justice Commission and Parliamentary Ombudsman. There's two institutions. These two institutions cannot change result of court processes, but they can investigate other authority for wrongdoing of whatever sort. I talked to them for hours, explaining everything in the money laundering, in particular these weird police interactions I got.
Yes. Then they, I say like it's coming to like my only option is to go public, and they both use a very interestingly phrase it as you should go public, which to me is weird. Like they don't say
this institution.
Yeah. Tell me I should go public.
Tell you, they told me.
Both of them.
Both institutions told me to go public.
I should go public is the wording.
Told me that I should go public.
Not like you have a right to go public, right? So I don't know, which indicates to me that they have no faith in their own institution to investigate anything, right? Mm-hmm. So then, but the other key thing is I verify that I can go to another police station. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm trapped in Tampere police, maybe let it go, right? Mm-hmm. But if I can just go to another police station, then why would they cover for the Tampere police, right? And they're like, you have a right to report crime in any police station in Finland. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, okay, because it's like the chief investigator. I'm like, why would I report more stuff to Tampere when it's going to be managed by the chief investigator who I'm accusing of a crime, right?
Sure.
Right. So then, so I checked this. I have this right. I'm pretty sure both these institutions should know. And then the weekend. Like things really start to get put together in my mind as like a scary picture, right? Because like until now I've been kind of like
sure.
Right, and it's like you get into this Twilight Zone-y thing, and like, you don't even expect things to make sense anymore. But then when you take a step back and you're like, why will all these people take such outrageous legal risks, right? With their reputation, with their careers, right? With the law, maybe going to jail. Like fraud is by police officers about the rights they just told me 3 days before.
Sure.
So I then go, I'm like, okay, I got to report this immediately. So I try to go, I'm just going to go back to the Tampere police anyways. Like they can't, I'm like, obviously the guy has to recuse himself. So I go to the Tampere police, but it's shut. There's a number on the door. I phone it. Nothing can be done. I then answer. I then phone emergency because I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to be assassinated today, right?
It's closed. I called the number.
There's a number on the door, but
nothing can be done. I call emergency.
So I want to talk to a police.
Emergency.
I talk and I say the whole story about the money laundering and the thing and organized crime.
Call the emergency?
Yeah.
I say everything to the emergency.
The judge. So also that there's a recording, right,
yeah.
of the story, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not suicidal. I fear being assassinated by organized crime.
I fear being assassinated by organized crime.
Anyways, emergency operator. I talked to him. I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. Anyways, conclusion: nothing I can do, and you cannot talk to a police officer on Sunday.
Conclusion: nothing they can do. and I cannot. Okay, nothing.
So
nothing
commit.
happened.
So commit. I'm just like I literally ask him like, so what you're telling me is you want to commit crime, do it on a weekend.
Yeah.
I even say, have you ever heard of a crime before? He's like, yes, I have. So a weird call. He's just like totally dismissive. And anyways, then Monday morning. It's okay. Then these are the last series of events. It's Monday morning. I go to the National Bureau of Investigation.
I go to the National Bureau of Investigation. You never went there.
No, I'd not gone there until now.
Investigation.
I'd emailed them. There's this email exchange.
Yeah.
Then I asked like how I can talk to anybody. I want to report money laundering, organized crime. And I tell them, that's the video is recorded.
Money laundering and organized crime. Yeah.
So that video is recorded. I've then recorded because this is just like I don't know. It's clearly we're not like. This is where I conclude that we're in the epic of Twitter justice, right?
This is you're in Tampere there.
No, this is in Tikkurila, this little town next to
So you went to
Helsinki.
the National Bureau of Investigations,
Yes.
which is national, which is Finland.
Yeah, it's a big
thing.
cube.
And you arrive, you be like, I want to report money laundering and organized crime. Okay, what happened?
And that I fear being killed by organized crime.
Sure.
He says
My
there's
fear
I guess
of
the
being
secretary.
killed.
Yeah, the I don't know the dude in the glass box, whatever you want to call him, is like you can't report crime here. I don't know. For me, it's a police station, and the rights are you can report crime in any police station, and these are the people that deal with money laundering. It says on their website. But anyways,
They say I cannot report this here.
so to go to a local police station.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, what's the closest one, or which one, or whatever. And then he gives me the address of the police station in Tikkurila, which is like walking distance.
Yeah.
So I walk over, I get in line.
Walk to the next police station.
I get in line. I get into the cubicle,
In line, I get into the cubicle.
and I start to tell and I say, I got this money laundering, organized crime stuff to report.
Yeah.
Immediately, the guy's like, "Well, this is too complicated for me." He gets the police chief of the station.
I start reporting. The guy in the cubicle.
Serious and
Says
complicated, so he'll get his boss.
Serious and complicated. So he will get his boss.
Right. So police chief.
Police chief arrive.
Yeah. And then I explain that
Explain to the chief.
that money laundering is super complicated. I mean, that money launderers. I start with because people don't listen to me,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to solve that.
Yeah.
So I start with this whole thing is about money laundering, and money launderers are super manipulative, right? And it takes time to explain.
Yeah.
Police chief is like, money launderers are super manipulative.
Yeah.
So the police chief then I start explaining.
I explain to the chief everything.
Yes.
Okay. Then
He agrees with the key. He agrees that it looks like money laundering.
he agrees. It looks like money laundering.
He agrees with all of the specific crimes,
Agrees with all the specific crimes.
like the extortion and the emails,
Extortion.
and reading my emails.
Emails.
Like the defrauding, like signing licenses for fake technologies, obviously fraud.
Defrauding. Signing licenses. Okay.
So he's just like, yeah, there's a crime. That's why, and it goes on for like an hour and a half. Well, maybe I don't know. Well, a long time. I think like an hour and a half. And then
That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. It goes on for hours.
well, over an hour. Let's say over an hour.
Over an hour. So finally, you reported it to the chief of the police.
Yeah, who agrees with all of these?
Yeah.
Okay, but they did not understand that I had already filed all this in the police system. Anyways, but then so they don't understand it. They don't ask for my ID. They don't look up my file or anything because they think it's all fresh.
Yeah.
Because I started from the beginning in chronological order.
Yeah.
Then they when I get to the point where I'm like, then I get phoned by police and I'm told I've been suspected of the crime of sending too many messages. Police chief says it before me. He's just like, well, that's not a crime.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So now police chief has, confirmed it's not a crime. So anyways, then
what did they do? Okay,
they finally understand that I've talked to police before.
Yeah.
Now then they ask for my ID.
Yeah.
They look up my file or whatever is on their system.
They ask for my ID. They look up my file.
And they just panic.
And they start to panic.
They're extremely fearful. Like they're afraid. Like that's their expressions and way of talking. They're talking super fast and Finnish. They're like pointing at stuff. They're like just full panic mode.
They are suddenly in full fear and dread.
And
talking
panic.
Super fast in Finnish.
Pointing stuff at the screen.
Pointing stuff on the screen.
Then they say they say I have to leave and deal with Tampere police.
They say I have to leave. And
then they're like the cases are closed. And then I say, well, I got new evidence because I returned to the board and got all sorts of new evidence. So then they're like, they're like, yeah, that's true, you have new evidence. They reopen the investigations. I see them click on reopening the investigations.
yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, that's right, you have new evidence, reopening the investigations. So they reopen the investigations. But then they refuse, they say I have to go back to Tampere, I have to leave, I can't file new claims. That I have to go deal with the Tampere police. I'm like, well, just let me file the claims. Like I have a right. I say I have a right to file criminal claims in any police station in Tampere. The national bureau just sent me here, right? And then I'm like, just file the claims. I'll write the names down, file the claims, and then I go. And then they just violently kick me out. Suddenly there's 3. This all happens. These last sequence happens in like a minute. And then like I'm trying to write down the names. I'm like, I'll just write down the names. You file the claims. And then suddenly there's like 3 police surrounding me.
I ask if I can file the claims. I just write the names down.
Right, they file.
And they will just have to file them. 3 police officer arrives suddenly and escort me
Violently. Like I think they like poke me. They like chase me down. One guy chases me down the hall. Like,
outside.
and I'm saying this is, and I'm saying during this time, I'm yelling, this is exactly what structural corruption looks like. Yeah. So while they violently kick me out, I'm yelling basically because there's like 30 witnesses because the whole place is packed.
Yeah.
Right. I'm yelling. I'm in a suit. I'm a businessman in a suit. They've been saying for an hour or more, calm down. We know this is emotional, but answer our questions, right? They've been like, and then now then they're in full panic mode.
They went in full panic mode when they put up.
As soon as they looked at my file and saw, because what they saw, what I imagine is what they saw is exactly what I said, exactly the crimes they just said were crimes.
Yeah.
Right. Reading my emails.
Yeah.
Extortion, etc. The money laundering.
Yeah.
Right. Were I filed in the system?
Yeah.
And then got closed down without ever talking to me. And then an investigation into me started. So they saw whatever shit the Tampere police pulled.
Yeah.
Was fucking serious shit.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. And they've just spent an hour telling me everything I understand about the law is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's going behind the outside of the police. Okay.
So then, so they violently kicked me out. Like, and this is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and like, as I keep saying since, they're using violence in the commissioning of their crime to defraud me of my right to file criminal claims in a police station, right? So police make committing a crime no longer have any liability protections, right? So they're just threatening me with violence. What is a threat from violence of police? Oh, a threat to escalate to lethal force. That's what they're trying to do, right? And if you say, oh, well, they follow the rules, they wouldn't do that. Well, no, they're not following the rules. So they don't get. So anyways, so this is just unacceptable to me. Super traumatic, right? I'm there, and a businessman in a suit for like an hour and a half. 3 police officers have to kick me out violently. I think one of them poking me a bit and stuff, making sure I'm as intimidated as possible, chasing me down the hall, poking me more, right? And then nobody was in the hall. It was just like a elevator at the end of the hall. Like I'm going, like you can just stand at like one end of the hall, make sure I leave. He chases me down the hall.
Yeah, okay.
So anyways, this is then now this is like the point of no return.
Yeah.
Right? This is the fucking point of no return. Until now, I was totally willing that these things just get corrected and whatever. But now there's the point of no return. Obviously, the first thing they're going to do, likely, is phone their buddies in Tampere and be like, you got to deal with this guy. How? Right? Then, so next Monday, I go to Tampere, I go to Helsinki police station. And then I'm like, whatever, I make the long list of accusations. As soon as they hear, the moment they hear, I want to make a claim against a police officer, police corruption. That's what I say, police corruption. They're like, you want to make a claim about police officer. Right? The moment they hear police corruption, you want to make a claim about a police officer. Then they don't listen to me anymore. They just file the claim. And they say an investigator's gonna
I go to Helsinki.
Yeah.
And I arrive and say
The next morning.
I want to next morning
I make a long list of
I
accusations.
go to Helsinki and I arrive and I say I want to make
Well, a long list of accusations, like the long list, but including police corruption, like extortion, like aggravated extortion and
a long list
organized crime and money laundering.
accusation,
Right? Long list of accusations,
everything,
including police corruption.
including police corruption.
As soon as they hear police corruption,
As
They-
soon as they hear police corruption,
they say, "Do you want to make a claim against a police officer?"
you want to make a claim about a police officer.
I say yes.
I say yes.
So at that point, which is I think the law, just the rules, they no longer listen to anything else. They just make the claim in the system because there's like a special process to do it, obviously. And then I get this, and then they say that they can't do anything more
They enter the claim in the system
because I wanted to file all my other claims as well.
Only the one against a police officer.
Well, I'm not sure how it works, but all you get is a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
But the rule is they don't want to, because the police aren't supposed to be aware, right? Because it's police corruption thing. So I think they're just following the rules by like ignoring me, filing the claim, and then a prosecutor is supposed to call me, right?
Okay.
So they make the claim. There's 2 of them. They do the whole computery thing, and then they give me the paper that I showed you.
They give me a paper saying what?
All it has is the number.
All it has is the case number
And the police officer's name.
and the police officer's name against who you made a claim?
No, the police officer who filed it.
Who filed?
Yeah.
And the police officer's name who filed it. Okay. Okay?
So then they say investigator's gonna call me.
They say an investigator is going to call me.
So I don't know. They seem to take it really seriously.
Yep.
And finally, people doing just what you expect professionals to do.
Okay.
So then, like, I don't want to go back to Tampere. Like, now I'm really afraid.
Yeah.
Right? The fucking, maybe shit's going down.
I'm afraid. I don't want to go back to Tampere. Okay?
And then, so I hang around in Helsinki a few days. I do not get called.
I stay in Helsinki, but I do not get any call
So then,
from
yeah.
an investigator.
So then I'm like, wait a minute. Why would I suddenly start trusting police at this point?
Give me a minute. Why would I start trusting police at this point?
And the Helsinki police, they didn't want the evidence. Like I'm still, my goal is still just to give the evidence.
Helsinki police still neither wants the evidence.
Well, in the Helsinki police. That's clearly the rules. So they're following the rules. But the result is I still haven't given my evidence to any police officer.
I still haven't give my evidence to any police officer.
Right. So I'm still in the situation. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm still in the situation that if I disappear, everybody's problems are solved. Right.
I'm still in the situation where if I disappear, everybody's problems are solved.
Right. And like they're clearly able to do pretty advanced corruption in Tampere. Well, maybe they can do it in Helsinki too, right?
Sure.
And then so then I'm like, well, what would Jason Bourne do? I think that's the most important question of my life.
Who?
Jason Bourne, Bourne Identity. Well, we have to watch these movies later. Okay. Anyways, spy guy. Obviously, like he would just like beat everybody up, but then I can't do that.
You can't.
But Jason Bourne 4, Run and Hide.
Yeah.
Like.
You have to go to Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, first I go to Sweden. I hop on a train. I'm like, I'm getting more and more paranoid. And then like, right. And then I'm like, well, how deep does it go?
More and more paranoid.
Like I was expecting a phone call.
Mental health.
Yeah, I was expecting a phone call from somebody who would reassure me that I was not going to be murdered and just silence.
I was expecting a phone call from someone reassuring me. A phone call from someone official reassuring me, telling me I will not get killed.
Yeah, and I reported a long list of pretty serious crimes: money laundering, organized crime, police corruption.
Yeah.
From my point of view, credible threat to murder me the day before, as well as defrauding me of my right to file crimes, like a pretty serious, pretty fundamental police activity, like filing the crime. And the way it works in Finland is the police officers that file the crimes are not investigators. They don't decide what's a crime or not.
No, of course not.
Right? So it's just your right to file a crime, and then whatever, investigator deals with it. Anyways, the point is, I think at this point, it might be now or later. Anyways, at one point I phoned the like follow-up line, like there's a phone number, and I asked.
At some point, I phone the follow-up line.
I give my case number.
I give my case number.
I'm like, I was told an investigator would phone me, like, is somebody on it or whatever?
I was told an investigator would phone me. I just want to confirm someone is
on it, yeah.
On.
And the guy on the phone gives me a name and a telephone number of the investigator.
On the phone gives me a name and a phone number.
Mia something.
Investigator.
Anyways, I phoned her like 10 times, no pickup. I text her, no answer.
I phone that person 10 times, no answer.
So I'm not sure if this was before I left for Sweden or after, but anyways, this also happens, which is weird. So then I just get on a train. I get on the last train to Lapland.
Yeah.
And then I take a bus over to Sweden.
I get on the train. I go all the way to Sweden.
I turn off my phone so I can't be tracked.
I turn off my phone to not be tracked.
A bus driver in Sweden gives me a discount card for a hotel, which was like 80 euros.
Nice.
So
I
if you want to be treated well, you go to Sweden. That's the lesson of the whole story, basically.
I stay at a hotel in Sweden.
And then I go to like in North Sweden, I go to like the first big police station I encounter.
In Sweden, I go to the first big police station I encounter.
And I write them a note. I give them a note.
I give them a note.
That I have organized crime activity to report.
I have organized crime activity to report.
I waive my right to an attorney, and as far as I know, I have not committed a crime myself.
Okay.
And then
waive my right to an attorney, and as far as I know, I haven't committed crime. Okay?
okay, well, if you report organized crime in Sweden, within 1 hour, 2 detectives show up to interview you.
Yeah.
Right?
2 detectives show up to interview me.
Yeah, and David's Swedish, so this the focus of the conversation is on David.
Yeah.
They answer. They're very professional. They ask me the common sense questions, right?
They ask me all the questions,
Uh,
and I give to these 2 everything.
I didn't print out all the evidence,
So you
but
answer,
I ask all the questions. I answer all the questions.
I answer and tell the whole story
Yeah,
orally.
yeah. Mostly focused on David because he's the Swede.
Mostly focused on David because he is from Sweden.
Yeah. So yeah, they're mainly focused on the money laundering.
Mainly focused on the money laundering. Okay?
They basically, they agree it's obviously serious. They look at each other. They look at each other. They give each other a weird, a kind of not a weird look, but a look. Let's say. Let's not qualify it. But I'm like, what's the point of smuggling narcotics if you can't launder the money?
Yeah.
Right? Like this is like because what annoys me is the idea that money laundering is not violent crime. Right? It's the most violent crime. It pays for everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
They
So
agree
anyways.
it's obviously serious.
Yeah. Anyways, and they say like an intelligence officer is gonna contact me, like a spy,
They
because it's all the international money laundering.
intelligence officer will contact you.
Well, no, they don't promise this, but they say like okay, it's like they're a local police station.
Yeah.
So
They say it's possible.
yeah.
They say what say what,
Well, they say they're gonna do what they can do.
they say they are going to do what they can do,
And seems like an intelligence
and
thing.
it is possible
Yeah.
that an intelligence officer will contact you.
Yeah, because of all of this like international money laundering.
Me. Yeah. And did you ask them, can I give you guys all the proof?
They say, I don't know, maybe someone's going to call me, but they say it's kind of like, like the specialists are in Stockholm.
Yeah.
They're like, why did you go to Stockholm? Like, well, because I bust over, and if I was going to bust back and take the train back,
Okay.
yeah, anyways, then I decide to go down to Stockholm anyways.
They contact me. And then you decide, why did you decide that? You give them things, right?
Well, I told the whole story.
Yeah.
I had not printed out all the evidence.
Okay.
Because I didn't have time to do that before. I didn't, like, as I was just like I only have one shirt. I didn't plan to, I just went for the day, right, to Tikkurila.
Yeah.
And so I only have one shirt.
Yeah.
So I'm like a week in the same shirt. And then,
They say they're going to do what they can do, and it's possible an intelligence officer will contact me. Okay, so
Yeah.
what then? Then what?
then I go down to Stockholm.
I go then to Stockholm.
And then my plan was to try to meet to go to like a money laundering place. but I just start having the practical issue that because I have no money on, I have very little money on my bank account. I took out a bunch of euros, so I have a bunch of euros in cash.
Okay.
But Sweden has become like a cashless society basically. So I only like I just have a money problem of it's impossible. Like it is simply financially impossible to stay in Sweden.
Financially impossible for me to stay in Sweden.
Yeah, because no lodging can be paid in cash.
Okay. So
So then I'm like, okay, well I've talked to the Swedes, so like they have my story on file. So I phone. Pardon?
they noted.
Yeah, they noted everything. They took notes and did like right. So they know like. So I'm like okay, maybe I feel a lot better. And then
I feel a lot better
yeah, and then just
to have communicated all my things
Yes.
to the investigator.
and the Swedes don't know like I mean the Finns wouldn't know what I gave to the Swedes.
Yeah,
Right. So I'm like in terms of like okay, much less likely to be killed now.
maybe tortured.
Well, maybe tortured, but that's character building in my books.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but and then I phone. I also so then I also phone and I explain everything again to the Swedish like report a crime on the phone.
And explain everything again to the Swedish police
Phone reporting,
phone reporting program.
whatever it is, and then I assume this is recorded. So now there's like a recording in Sweden of the whole thing as well.
Recorded.
Maybe not, but
Yeah.
but that's right. But anyways, it's now on file again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on file.
I try to make sure my story gets on file.
Yeah.
It's basically what you do.
Yeah, and then I get back. So then I'm like I don't have like I was gonna come to Switzerland, but I also don't have my passport.
Yeah, okay.
So because I didn't plan to leave the country when I left to talk to police.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a day trip, and turned into a week, a day spa. Anyways, the point is, I get back to Tampere with
I get back to Tampere
with €3 left on my bank account.
with €3 left on my bank account. Okay.
But because the train in Finland also needed a bank card, you can't pay in cash anymore.
And what do you do? What happened?
Then I get an email. An email. So like this is like exactly the 8th of
March. April.
Yeah, it must be the 8th because they give me a month and the due date was 8th of April.
I get an email from who?
Police lawyer.
From a police lawyer.
Yeah, not an investigator, but some sort of police lawyer.
From a police lawyer who
Yeah.
said
Who's like reviewing a decision, he says.
Reviewing a decision.
And he asked me to complete the information.
They asked me to complete the information.
Yes. So then,
What is that exactly?
for me, I immediately respond. This looks like another cover-up.
No, but like, what is the email about? What is it like? He said reviewing a decision. What does that mean? And they ask you to complete information on what document, on what thing?
Well, on reviewing the decision, or what, like.
Reviewing what decision?
Oh, you want to see the letter? Request for completion.
Okay.
So this comes from
What
Eric
does he
Wizen.
want?
We're informed by the PD of
That you have expressed critique regarding an investigative decision made on by Detective Inspector Arto
Parthenon.
We have filed in the aforementioned report from Note and all your critique as mentioned, but to be able to proceed, we will need more detailed information from you. Which part of the decision you are criticizing? Therefore, reserve you the possibility to complete your critique towards the information. Okay. Okay. On which one? Okay. 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 Good.
Yeah, but the problem is, this is not. I'm not critiquing a decision. I filed claims especially against the Tikkurila guys who kicked me out of the station.
Mm-hmm.
And my claim is about fraud of the like, because the police in Tampere, they didn't record my exact claims.
Okay. But
Right.
did you file that?
No, this is just another cover up. Like, I don't know the name Arto Partanen. Because all I know is, I don't even know if this is the boss of all I know is the Kirkku, Korkia Tupa.
Okay.
Right, so I don't know this name. I'm not criticizing a decision.
But the police station is the one they kicked you out. This
no,
Varta main police station.
No, I imagine this is well, I don't even know where this is. It could be some sort of like. That's what I think at some point. I'm like, well, maybe this is just a mix-up. Like, well, I don't know. This is like a whole region.
Yeah, but like, is it in Tampere? Is it the one, or is it the one you were?
Well, it's like the region of Helsinki, so I don't know. They don't say which police station.
Okay, well, you were kicked out of Helsinki police station. So
No. I was kicked out of Tikkurila police station,
Okay.
which is next to Helsinki.
Okay. Well, this is a region, so maybe it's this one. You went only to one, right?
I went to two. I went to the Tikkurila, who kicked me out, and then the next morning I went to Helsinki.
Okay.
But the point is, I'm not critiquing a decision. I accuse the police in Tikkurila of defrauding me out of my right to file police claims, and I accuse the Tampere police of corruption and money laundering, participating in money laundering.
Yeah. So
right?
that's what you answer to that.
Yeah, and as it's already been told by the as you saw in the other mail, right? It has to be a prosecutor that investigates.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So why is this lawyer, police lawyer? That's his title.
Yeah.
So why is this police lawyer? So I'm like the only reason a lawyer rather than an investigator would be involved at this point is for a cover up. That's what you need lawyers for, to do crimes, as far as I can tell.
Don't answer that. Like.
Well, I answer. I'm like, how's this? I answer. I explain the whole thing. How it's cover up, how it's money laundering.
I re-explain the whole thing.
Anyways, like, and maybe this is a legitimate process, or maybe it's some sort of coincidence, right?
Sure.
And because I'm told Mia, I'm told Mia was investigating. Where'd Mia go, right? So, anyways, a whole month goes by. I keep. Well, like now this is official police correspondence, so it's a chance to put my story right in official police archives. I assume. I don't know. Maybe they can delete this too. But anyways,
months goes by,
and I explain the various cover-ups that I'm accused. I say in my first response, I'm like, I'm accusing of a threat to murder me, because like murder should be a key word, right?
Yeah.
Right. That automatically triggers a serious investigation. He just ignores all that. He doesn't respond. He asks no follow-up questions. I'm also like, I've talked to Swedish police. I've still not gotten one phone call from Finnish police about money laundering since a year.
A whole month goes by. I still don't know if any serious investigation is going on.
I have not been called about anybody.
I haven't been called by anybody.
Then in also like this Arto Parton, and this is the first time like I didn't yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah. Anyways.
Events.
So the next event is then the 8th comes, and 8th morning.
8th of what month?
Well, they say of this month, April. They say
April 8th arrive.
Which is the deadline for the completing the information.
Yeah, April 8th arrives.
The morning
is the deadline for completing the information requested by the police lawyer. Yeah. And then
So in the morning, first thing in the morning, sends me the decision that they reviewed and haven't found any problems.
In the morning,
In Finnish and English.
I receive an email. You have completed their thing?
Well, first it's not the 8th is the deadline. I can still send more information the 8th. But I've sent like a dozen mails explaining different things.
In the morning, I receive an email saying there is nothing wrong.
In Finnish and English.
In Finnish and English. Okay.
All right, so now they've just proved, like now they've made a pretty big mistake because they've just proven it's a cover-up because the 8th is the deadline. I can still send information the 8th. Obviously, they've pre-decided this, right? Regardless of what I send them.
Yeah.
Right, and and even if they were gonna take care of it, even if the 8th, like the 7th was the deadline, right? They reviewed all of it because I sent a bunch of stuff the day before, so they're saying that they reviewed everything and made their decision in like 10 minutes in the morning and translated it into English.
Yeah.
So it's like not even credible process. There's also a law. Talking to some other bureaucrat, there's a law that you have to wait 7 days after a due date because you might get stuff in the mail.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Anyway.
So you received that.
So then, okay, but fucking more fucking cover up. So then I just explain why this is an obvious cover up for all of these reasons, right? That this is not what my accusations were. I was accusing the Tikkurila police.
Was all cover up to everyone.
Oh, I put like different like prosecute. I start putting people in copy so I won't get murdered very quickly.
People in copy.
Like the ombudsman and the justice commissioner and prosecutors and Helsinki Times as well.
Yeah.
I just start putting everybody in copy, explaining it's an obvious cover-up, that I'm making serious accusations, including murder. I don't even get a phone call. No one's investigating anything and so on. Then this is when I did not remember that the sentence that a prosecutor investigates by the senior constable. But then I do some more research, and it's on their website, the prosecutor of Finland's website, that prosecutors investigate claims against police. Yeah. So I quote this. There's also a page on the Justice Department's website that talks about structural corruption in Finland.
You don't need to explain me.
Yeah. Anyways,
the whole thing. What you need to give me is that.
Well, I make such a big noise. I've even put the Prime Minister in copy.
Yeah.
I make such a big noise that the only credible thing to do would be to finally phone me, right?
The only credible thing to do is to phone me.
Because the problem with extreme accusations is you can't ignore it. Like, you can phone me and say they're not credible.
I know. I just want the event.
Yeah. So then, during this time, I finally get through to the financial intelligence unit, which is like they have a phone number, but they never pick up. But I finally managed to get through to them because I'm still like maybe the right person hasn't gotten the case or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, I talked to him. He agrees that reading my email is a crime. Right? So he refuses to identify himself. So I don't know his name. He even refuses to say that he's a police officer. I get through to him through the police switchboard. Through the National Bureau of Police switchboard. Anyways, he says that the Tampere, if I reported it to Tampere police and they didn't do that, the decision can't be questioned. But as you saw in the email, the senior constable Korki Tupa is like, tell it to the National Bureau of Police, right?
Sure. But again, events. The only
thing
I talk to the phone me, and then what do you do?
Pardon?
Then I explain why all of this was all covered.
Oh no, then the next event is I come to Switzerland. But the only thing in between is I talk to this financial crimes unit.
I talk to this finance. Come on, how do you call it?
It's financial intelligence unit is called.
Financial intelligence unit. And then what do you say?
Well, he agrees. It sounds like money laundering. He agrees reading my emails is a crime.
I report everything to them too. I made as much noise as I as I could
Try to bewilder them before leaving the country, basically.
to make sure
They are bewildered.
they are bewildered. But now I can't stay anymore. I leave the country
Yes.
and I have arrived to Switzerland.
Oh, and I also talked to the prosecutor before leaving, and they have nothing on my file at all. They can't look up any information about my case number at all.
Yeah, I talked to the prosecutor. Apparently, they have nothing
On my case at all.
on my case, claims, or anything. I made as much noise as I could to make sure they are bewildered, but now I can't stay anymore. I leave the country and I have arrived to Switzerland.
Yes. And then just Friday, I talked to the prosecutor again, and they say to send all the evidence to them.
Friday, we are April 24th, 2022. This is the end of my story.
For now.
For now, I had the prosecutor on the phone last Friday. He told me to send all evidence to him.
Well, them, her. It was a her, but to the prosecutor's office.
She told me to send all evidence to them. This text is part of it, and the recording on which it has been typed is part of it too.
All right.
Eric Vision.
All right, we press stop.
Yeah, it's over.